What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Battle in the Trenches. It is week 15, most likely round 2 of your playoffs in the semifinals. If you are here watching and you're still in the playoffs, fantastic. If you're not, hopefully you're playing for some money or something like that. We love money. That's kind of why most of us are in this, but hey, we're in here for the fun too. And man, it's not fun that fantasy football season is about to come to an end. But that doesn't mean the end of the content for Climb the Pocket in Battle in the Trenches and some of our off-season content. It's coming up soon. We'll get you playoff videos. We'll get you just NFL football videos, and then off-season will be here before you know it. But hey, if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe right now. We really appreciate it, and like this video. It helps us grow. Drop a comment. Any of your comments, we will try and answer before the games kick off on Thursday. There's games Saturday. You got to pay attention to those lineups, people, this week. It's a big, big week. If you're in the playoffs still, it is not the week to not pay attention, so you want to make sure you know what's going on in your lineup at all times. I'm here with my co-host Ryan. Find him on Twitter at Bootleg Fantasy. Find me at Steve_CTP. Ryan, you got a quick message for our Week 15 playoff people?
Aside from that, we're still doing the giveaway. We're giving away wide receiver 1's jersey, Davante Adams. Leave a comment below. We intended for it to be a wide receiver last week, but then at 360 FFB just threw it completely off the rails. So just comment whatever you want in the little comment section, preferably your favorite NFL player right now, and you will be entered to win that sweet jersey. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm telling you guys that it's in my possession because, I don't want it to leave my possession, but one of the lucky viewers will get that. Week 16, we'll announce it. If you don't claim it by then, maybe we'll have like a special Week 17 video where we just give it to somebody random, but we're giving that away Week 16. Make sure you get your entry in. But aside from that, are my Birds back? I'm pretty sure my Super Bowl contending Philadelphia Eagles are all the way back, and that's probably I'm gonna start it, Steve, because I'm starting Jay.
Let's lead us into the quarterback. Let's lead us into the stardom quarterbacks
because I was not ready for him to be as mobile as he was. Like, yes, we saw him as a mobile quarterback in college at Oklahoma, at Alabama. But, he went over 100 yards. I wasn't really expecting that from, I don't think that the Saints gave up a 100-yard rusher in like 50-something games, something like that, which is nuts. So the fact that Hurts did it on top of your boy Miles Sanders also doing it.
I called it last week, too. I said there's a change. I know there's a sliver of chance, and of course – most people had him on the bench, and that's tough. Yeah,
it hit. But Hurts looked good. His passing, there's stuff to work on for sure. But he's got that solid floor where if he runs the ball 10 times and he gets you 80 yards on the ground and finds the end zone, he's great. And he's in Arizona in a game that should be a high-scoring game if Hurts plays well. So it's tough to say he doesn't score 20 points this week, so I definitely like Jalen Hurts against the Cardinals. I'm also starting Jared Goff against the Jets. Dude, I don't know what the Jets are doing as an organization. They let up another 40 bomb. Russell Wilson just threw the ball all over the field, and the Jets looked like a joke. You kind of just have to play whoever's playing against the Jets, and luckily for you, this guy could be a quarterback on your waiver wire if you don't feel good about who you're actually starting, or if somehow you made it this far with Matt Stafford as your main guy. Jared Goff feels like a pretty solid floor guy as well, so I definitely like Goff as a starting quarterback this week.
All right, let's move on to my stardom quarterbacks. And I told Ryan before the show that I'm going to be short and sweet this week. There's not too much. I'm not going to give you tons of stats, tons of padding. We've had all of that all season long. We were close to the fantasy football industry. We're paying attention to the NFL a lot. I'm going to give you guys that I feel very strong about starting this week, and that's it. And I don't need too much to back it up. That's why I'm starting Big Ben this week for Cincinnati. And I know Big Ben has not been great as of lately, and Diontae Johnson has stone hands, and some of the other receivers aren't doing too well, and the run game is non-existent. But they're going against Cincinnati. This Steelers team's pissed off. They've just lost 2 games in a row. Their chances at the number 1 seed are pretty much down the drain, with Patrick Mahomes leading the Chiefs to a 1-loss record most likely. And they're playing Cincinnati. And last time Big Ben played Cincinnati, he had close to 30 fantasy points. And I can see his ceiling being right there again this week. I don't think his floor is any less than 18 points. That's a very safe start. I think, like I said, they're ready to get back going. I think Diontae Johnson's going to have a good game. And hey, that's a little hint for the future part of the video. But feel confident about Big Ben this week. I know he's been down, but going against Cincinnati, it's a great matchup. I'm also starting Mitch Trubisky versus Minnesota. Maybe I'm chasing points here, but hey, Mitch has looked pretty good. A couple good fantasy games in a row, and most likely it's due to this really easy schedule they have down the road, and we've seen that with David Montgomery in the rushing game. They've gotten that going. That clearly opens things up for the pass game. Mitch Trubisky is benefiting from that. Al Robinson is once again a very strong wide receiver one, and Mitch Trubisky is a guy feeding him the ball. Going against Minnesota, they're a defense you can definitely beat. I see this being a pretty competitive game, so I like Mitch Trubisky this week going against Minnesota. If you're in the playoffs and it's week 15, you're probably in a bad spot with your quarterback or something to be able to start Mitch Trubisky. But if you are, I don't feel bad starting him. I think he's been good enough the last couple of weeks for you to feel confident in a good floor for Mitch Trubisky, so I like him against Minnesota. Let's go move on to the sit-'em quarterbacks. Who you got?
I'm going to get this right at some point. There's only really 2 weeks where I can try, and one of these weeks is this week. I'm sitting Cam Newton against the Dolphins. I've been wrong on Cam all year. I picked the wrong games. But this is the week, Steve. This is the week where I get it right, and Cam Newton's not playable because they're playing against the Dolphins, who are down like 7 different players on offense. They've got a rookie quarterback, and we know how Belichick does against rookie QBs. I think he's 19-5 against rookie quarterbacks. Pretty good. So I don't think that Cam's going to need to be Superman. I think he just needs to be super decent, and I don't think that really equates to a ton of fantasy points for him. So I think, shockingly enough, this ends up being like a Damian Harris game, and I think that Cam won't have to throw the ball all over the field. So fantasy points aren't going to be there. I'm also sitting Taysom Hill against the Chiefs. You always say, oh, it's got to be a shootout. Taysom Hill can't throw the ball. I mean, we've seen that. He's not accurate. He's not a sustainable quarterback when they're down in games. Every knock you hear about Lamar Jackson is true for Taysom Hill, where they need to be leading for him to be an effective quarterback. The difference is Lamar Jackson's actually talented, and I don't think Taysom Hill's playable. I don't think he eclipses 20 points, and in this fantasy climate, you need at least 20 points out of your quarterback to get a win, so don't play Taysom Hill this week.
All right, my sit-'em quarterbacks, my first one is Deshaun Watson versus Indianapolis. Most likely, Deshaun Watson helped you get to the fantasy playoffs. Last week, he didn't help you move on to round 2 in the fantasy playoffs. If you're there, you got lucky. I don't risk it this week going against Indianapolis. Their defense is much improved from just a few weeks ago when Indianapolis played Houston. They were missing DeForest Buckner and some other key defensive weapons. And they have no receiving weapons. They have no one. Zilch. It's not good. And Deshaun Watson cannot do it all on his own, especially against this premier defense. So I don't trust Deshaun Watson this week. I think there's plenty of other good options out there. I'd rather start Phillip Rivers on the other side.
Dude,
against
I need to talk. I need to talk about this game out of Deshaun. I think he finished with 15 fantasy points. I told you to sit him.
Yeah.
But I also told you to start Jordan Akins, right? I said he might be the guy that like lucks into a touchdown at tight end. Did you see Jordan Akins wide open in the end zone? Just take a pass directly off the chest.
Yeah, he had the targets too. It was all there.
If you started Jordan Akins on my good word, and Jordan Akins lost the ball in the sun while he was wide open, I'm sorry. I would have caught that pass if that was me. And I'm not going to tell you to start Jordan Akins this week. So that's my little sidebar rant. I was right that he was going to be wide open in the end zone for a touchdown, and that's all you need from tight end this year. But it hit him directly in the face. So, that's all I got for you on that, Steve.
My second sit-'em quarterback is Baker Mayfield versus the Giants. The Giants are strongly becoming a pretty good defense. And Baker Mayfield, we just saw the game, probably one of the games of the year against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night, where they scored at, I think, 4 rushing touchdowns. It might have been 3 and then a Kareem Hunt receiving touchdown. But they want to run the ball. And after this type of game against the Ravens defense, I don't see how they can go away from that. I just don't. They're going to have to use Nick Chubb. They're going to have to use Kareem Hunt. They're going to want to use those 2 players a lot. And like I mentioned, the New York Giants passing defense is actually pretty good, especially led by the group in James Bradbury. It's going to be a tough day for any receiver, really not named Jarvis Landry. He'll probably work out of the slot. I don't know how much he'll see of James Bradbury, but I don't think they're going to put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands in this game to win it. I think it's going to be a run game like last night, or like on Monday night. Baker got it done, and so did everyone else on the team. But I just really don't trust him this week going against the Giants. So I'm going to put Baker on my bench. You could start him if you don't have a lot of other good options and feel okay because it still is the Giants. The name value is a good matchup, but if you have other options, I would certainly explore them. Let's go and move on to the stardom running backs, and I'll kick us off here with Cam Akers versus the Jets. Cam Akers, man, the last 2 weeks is become that guy that you drafted, and we said this earlier in the season. We don't know how we feel about these rookies. Everyone was saying it. There's no preseason. It's not the same training camp. It's not the same. A lot of these guys are going to get off slow. Well, it looks like Cam Akers, and we saw flashes throughout the season, was probably the best running back on the roster the whole year long. He just was. And what Sean McVay was doing with the other two running backs in the backfield, doing a 3-man committee, Cam Akers is active but gets 0 carries. It just was irresponsible. It didn't make sense. And now it's showing. Cam Akers is playing great. Perfect timing. Maybe this was their plan all along because they're a high playoff team. They certainly can make a run to the Super Bowl with the way their defense is playing and the way Cam Akers is running. He puts up over 170 yards last week. Fantastic, and going against the Jets this week, wow, that's a fantastic matchup. Like, you cannot not have Cam Akers in your matchup after seeing the last 2 weeks of Cam Akers. Have I said Cam Akers enough? Because you need to put him in your lineup.
That's fair.
Yeah, you got to.
I love Cam Akers. I drafted him in like the 7th round this last year. My team fell apart like week 8, so I couldn't afford to keep Cam Akers on my lineup.
Most people
my
dropped
roster.
him. Most people.
I cut him. Hand up, that's on me. I went back to pick him up. I picked him up again and then cut him again. And now he's on a playoff team. So I'm glad he found greener pastures on a team that is starting to thrive with him in their flex spot. They feel great about it. He looks dynamic. I mean, there's nothing more to say about him.
All right, my second start running back is Wayne Gallman for the Giants versus Cleveland. And this also kind of goes off Monday night. There were so many rushing yards in that game, the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cleveland Browns. And Cleveland is certainly a respectable defense, but they got ran all over by Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards and then J.K. Dobbins at the end of the game. I feel confident about Wayne Gallman this week. He had a down week against Arizona, but every week before that, he was fantastic. For 5 or 6 straight weeks, he was like the RB4. I don't think you should forget that because of one down games. Even the best players have down games, and I'm not saying Wayne Gallman's one of the best players, but he was playing like it right before this past game, and I think he can pick right back up against Cleveland in this game where I think they can be competitive. I know Cleveland they're playing hot right now. They'll most likely beat the Giants, but I think the Giants can stay in this game enough to keep Wayne Gallman involved, especially early on. And all I need is one big run, which we've seen Wayne Gallman do, break off some big chunks. If you can get that done early, I think he has a good fantasy day. So I like Wayne Gallman this week as a good flex start, good spot to put in your running back in the flex. So I like that. Who you starting?
Got to start J.K. Dobbins against the Jags. Dobbins saw 61% of the snaps in that Monday night game, which it didn't feel like. It felt like Gus Edwards was out there the entire time, but Gus Edwards, I think, saw 37%, and Mark Ingram only saw the play where I think it was the first play of the game for the flea flicker. That was the only time Mark Ingram touched the ball. So the changing of the guard is here. It's J.K. Dobbins' backfield. I know that you were probably pretty frustrated that you saw Gus Edwards score twice. Dobbins did find the end zone this past week. He did get a 2-point conversion. He had a pretty respectable day. He's going against the Jaguars. No offense to the Jaguars front, the defensive line, because my brother plays Xbox with one of them. But it's a tough game for the Jags, who have just kind of had to roll over. Gardner Minshew's back in there. I don't think that the Jags ever get up in this game, so I'm hoping that J.K. Dobbins kind of gets into form as they get into the playoffs. So he's the main guy there. And I'm also starting.
Wait. Was that a humble brag by association?
It was a small flex. So
okay, all right.
So
sure.
a guy on the Jaguars, Doug Costin, he recovered the Corey Davis fumble. He went to our high school, so he's their starting defensive tackle. And if he sees this video, he's going to be very frustrated that I'm downplaying the Jaguars' defensive front. They got Smoot up there. The linebacker plays decent, but, I mean, Doug, I'm sorry. That's all I can say.
Doug Fresh watches our videos?
Right. It's very possible that he watches our videos, yes, Steve.
All right. Who you got?
He may pass it on to the other Jaguars, but I'm also starting Jeff Wilson. Raheem Mostert's made of, I don't know, just soft substances. I don't know what's going on with Mostert. I want him to be healthy. I want him to be good. He's not healthy enough ever for me to trust him. He felt like a good he was like the zero running back target all year. Um, it's tough to see him not string together games, and Jeff Wilson's been reliable. I know he's had a little bit of the fumbles recently. He's very talented at running back. They're playing the Cowboys, who stink. They're a bad team. I know their linebacking core is good, kind of, but they've pretty much given up on the air, it seems like. So I feel like Jeff Wilson's a solid play, especially because that offense needs to have that identity be through the run game. That's what they were when Garoppolo was there. I don't know why it feels like they're like 50-50, but they need to get back to just pounding the rock, and Jeff Wilson's going to be the main guy this week.
All right, let's move on to the sit-em running backs. And unlike Ryan, who gives you very, very good explanation at length, and he tells you exactly why to sit and start players,
right?
I'm going to tell you why to sit this running back at no explanation whatsoever. You're sitting Zeke Elliott versus the 49ers. He's not dependable. You cannot depend on this guy in your lineup. I believe Ryan had him as a sit last week, and that worked out. Or it might have been the week before. But he had him as a sit, and I have him as a sit this week. You cannot start Zeke Elliott with confidence unless your lineup sucks, which most likely you're not in the semifinals. He's not playing well. Tony Pollard looked better than him.
True.
It's just not good just for Zeke. And, the rest of the offense is doing okay. But Zeke Elliott is not benefiting. Maybe something's wrong. Maybe he's injured. He had that calf problem and whatnot, and we were all leery about playing him this week. He got in there. He just had not that great of a day. And now he's going against San Francisco, and their defense is nothing to just play against. It's nothing. It's definitely pretty good. And I don't think I can trust him in this matchup. So I don't like Zeke. Not starting him. I don't have him, but I'm not starting him. And I'm also sitting James Conner versus Cincinnati, and this one's a layup because they are not running the ball in Pittsburgh. That's why I'm starting Big Ben this week. I feel confident about the amount of times he's going to throw the ball. These receivers are going to see a lot of volume. James Conner is not even catching a lot of balls. He's not doing it for you. He just came back, getting healthy and whatnot, and he's just not getting it done. They're not running the ball, whether it's Benny Snell, whether it's James Conner. They're not running the ball. That's not what they're doing, and they're only a 2-loss football team. And maybe that's the reason they just lost 2 games. But they've been passing the ball all year long, and it's been without the run game. And I can't, just like Zeke, another big name, James Conner, I can't trust him. Even against Cincinnati, their run defense is a little better than you think. And I think this is a game that Big Ben just takes over, and they throw the ball a lot. I don't start James Conner this week. Not starting. Who you said?
I'm sitting Kenyan Drake against my Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think it's a game for Drake. The Eagles' front has been great. It's the only area of the field that they've been good. They've got Fletcher Cox. Malik Jackson's a little banged up. They've got Hargraves, who's also a great run stuffer, and Brandon Graham's great against the run. It's not a Kenyan Drake game. I don't know where Kenyan's explosiveness from Miami went, but he runs like David Johnson, and it's not a compliment at this point. So I got to sit Kenyan Drake. And I'm also sitting Todd Gurley, who all of a sudden has the Jay Ajayi syndrome where he's just shot. He's just shot as a running back. He can't do anything out there. I don't know what's going on. He was like running back 6 for the first 5 or 6 weeks, and people were so excited to take their victory laps on Todd Gurley. He's going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's stout against the run. It's not a game for Todd Gurley either. I think Tampa Bay goes up pretty early in that game, and you can't run the ball with Gurley, who can't run the ball anyway. So sit both of those guys. I know you felt half decent to start the season with them. It got grosser over time, and now you feel disgusting if you put them in your lineup.
Wow, some big names in the sit-em running backs this week, guys. Pay attention. You can win your playoff matchup off the waiver wire. I'm going to have to do it in a few leagues this week. Pray for me. All right, let's move on to the stardom wide receivers. I'm starting Scary Terry McLaurin, multiple weeks in a row with only 2 catches. It's not good. That ain't good. All right? But they're going against Seattle. I think Dwayne Haskins will be back under center. I think that's going to happen. I like a little spark. I think there's a little spark coming. All right, Terry McLaurin there's a big game looming. It's building up inside. Dwayne Haskins coming back. He's hot. He's furious. He's ready to get this win against Seattle. You heard it. Washington is going to really take on Seattle. I think they have a chance to win this game. I think Terry McLaurin is going to be a big part of it. See a big stat line this week for McLaurin. So I like McLaurin against Seattle. I'm also starting Brandon Ayiuk versus Dallas. Seems like a layup too, because I think he's going to be very chalky in DFS games, because I don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to be healthy. Who's there catching balls? Who is there? I mean, you mentioned Mostert. He's not doing anything. Jeff Wilson's he's a rusher. He runs the ball a lot, and that's what they want to do. But Brandon Ayiuk looked great when Deebo Samuel went out. He got so many targets, a lot of catches, very reliable, gets in the end zone, over 100 yards. Going against Dallas, their defense is coming up a little bit, but nothing to be afraid of. I love Brandon Ayiuk this week. I think there's no way he doesn't catch the ball 6 to 8 times, more towards the 8 side, and up at 100 yards, and a very good chance of getting in the end zone. That's a slam dunk play in your fantasy playoffs. You got to start Brandon Aiyuk, whether it's a flex play, your wide receiver 2. I think you find a room for him in your lineup this week. So feel confident. Brandon Aiyuk. Who you starting?
I got to start Corey Davis against Detroit. Hopefully Stafford's good because I don't want to see Chase Daniel. That's kind of the thought there. But Tennessee's defense has been pretty bad. So Detroit's the type of team that can kind of keep this a game, allowing Corey Davis to have more opportunities deeper in the game. He didn't have a great week last week. I think it was like 3 for 40 in that fumble I talked about. So it's one of those games that they need to get him right going to the playoffs. But he's been tremendous for that team. I mean, when they need to pass the ball, he's been more consistent than A.J. Brown. And that's tough for me to say out loud because A.J. Brown's probably my favorite wide receiver in the league right now. But Corey Davis has just been a great security blanket. His routes have been tremendous, and he's been everything they wanted him to be as that first-round pick. So Corey Davis, he was probably everyone's best waiver wire pickup aside from James Robinson. That's not talked about enough. So got to get Corey in the lineup. I'm also starting Diontae Johnson. I know the dropsies are there, but they're playing Cincinnati. The only thing that they're playing this game for is to get right. And that Steelers offense looks terrible when Diontae Johnson's not in there. That first half after Diontae was removed, they couldn't move the ball. It was clear as day that Diontae was the most important wide receiver to that team, and they need to get his hands right. I think this is a classic game where he sees 10 targets and he has to catch 8 of them for him to feel good to build on that. So Diontae Johnson's definitely somebody that you shouldn't tinker out of your lineups this week.
All right, let's move on to the sit-em wide receivers. And I'm sitting Cole Beasley versus Denver and the Jets wide receivers versus the Rams. Cole Beasley versus Denver, don't like. His targets are coming down now that John Brown's coming back. That's what I'm saying. I think John Brown's going to slide back in and take that number 2 slot. I know Cole Beasley's been pretty good. Came back down to earth last week, but I don't see this as a great game for him against Denver. I'm also seeing the Jets wide receivers versus the Rams, as I mentioned. That's Mims, that's Perriman, and that's Crowder. They're going against the Rams. The Rams are probably the best defense in the league. I don't like this matchup at all. I think the Jets maybe score 3 points, and that's a maybe. There's a shutout here that's possible. So I don't like any of those guys this week. Sit those guys. Who you sitting?
Got to sit Robby Anderson against your boys, against the Packers. I like Robby as a complimentary guy. I don't like Robby as the main guy. I know he's felt like the 1A to DJ Moore all year, but it's a lot easier to take the top off when somebody's garnering all of the attention across the middle of the field. So if DJ Moore's out, especially, I don't like Robby Anderson. DJ Moore's in there. It's not as bad of a sit, but I still don't love it just because Green Bay's defense has been so good against the pass. So Robby Anderson's a tough play. And I'm also sitting Tyler Lockett. Since that 200-yard game, he's been brutal. He has not eclipsed, I think, 70 yards is what I saw since that game. It's been all DK Metcalf. And unfortunately, it's been a lot of Russell Wilson regression. Russell Wilson wasn't going to keep up the pace he was on. But Tyler Lockett has felt like his favorite target for the last, 10 years, seemingly. I know it probably hasn't been that long. But Russ needs to figure it out with Lockett, and going against Washington this week, it doesn't feel like that's the matchup where he's going to get it figured out. So I'm sitting Lockett. Hopefully you're still there with your wide receivers being better than Tyler Lockett, but it's a tough play.
All right, on to the wasteland. Tight ends. Stardom tight ends for me, Eric Ebron versus Cincinnati. This goes hand in hand with the Big Ben versus Cincinnati, with the Diontae Johnson versus Cincinnati, with the sit James Conner versus Cincinnati. We think it's going to be a passing game, a get-right game for this offense. Their MO is their pass game, and I think that Eric Ebron is a big part of it. Yeah, a lot of people don't talk about it. Sees a lot of targets. One of Big Ben's favorite targets, especially when they need a first down, a big first down. Eric Ebron's the guy. He's really athletic. He's playing really well for them, so I liked Eric Ebron. I'm also starting Logan Thomas. 2 weeks ago, 9 targets. Last week, 7 targets. I love the target volume going against Seattle, a defense that can be beat. Like I mentioned, Dwayne Haskins. Maybe he doesn't have the same connection that him and Alex Smith had, but we will see. If you got to risk it, throw him in there. But there's definitely some risk behind it because of Dwayne Haskins. But I like the target volume. Hopefully, the coaching staff sees that and they like what they see, and they're gonna have a game plan to keep getting him the ball. Who are you starting at tight end?
Got to start Rob Gronkowski. Fantasy Twitter needs Gronk to be on one side of, I think it was tight end 8 is where I've seen a lot of Rob Gronkowski bets, and he's at tight end 9 right now. Naturally, he's going to end up scoring a touchdown this week against the Falcons, so he's going to move up to probably tight end 6 after a big game this week. I'm also starting Dallas Goedert. He had the most targets from Jalen Hurts this past week. I assume that continues because the Eagles are going to need to throw the ball. And if he sees 8 targets, he saw 6 this past week. If he sees 8, catches 6 of them, he turns that into 60 yards and possibly a touchdown. That's a big day out of a tight end.
Wow, that was a lot of math. All right, sit him tight ends. Jordan Akins, you mentioned it earlier, dropped that ball in the end zone. That was tough. And maybe you feel good because you're like, oh, he will not do that again. I'm sitting Deshaun. I'm sitting Jordan Akins. I don't like this matchup. I think Indianapolis comes to play. I think the Houston Texans are on the super downhill turn to lose out. I don't like this matchup for Akins. Sitting him. Also sitting Dalton Schultz versus San Francisco. Pretty chalky as like a low-price guy in DFS last week. A lot of guys were hopeful for the matchup going against Cincinnati. It didn't really play out. I think he had like 3 for 32. It was a 3 for 32er. You can see that again this week. That's not a guy you want to rely on week 15. Hopefully in your second round of the playoffs, going in and leading yourself to the championship. Dalton Schultz ain't going to help you get there, so I'm sitting him. Who you sitting?
I got to sit 2 of the biggest busts at the tight end position, which is tough to say because everyone's been a bust. But I'm sitting Evan Engram. He's got 1 receiving touchdown all year. Don't know what they're doing with him. He needs to get out of New York. He's much more talented than what they're allowing him to do. I need to sit Jonnu Smith as well. I don't know what they're doing with him either. I get Derrick Henry's great, and Jonnu's probably the 3rd receiving option in an offense that doesn't really pass the ball. Dude, I feel like he's just O.J. Howard essentially, but like in an offense that doesn't allow that to flourish. So hopefully those guys find better situations next year. But if you drafted them and you still have them, don't play them because you've been hurt all year. So you know what to do.
All right, people, that was it. It's week 15. Those were our starts and sits at all the major positions. Take it how you want. Take our advice. Go get a W. Or drop a comment below. Any question you got. If we didn't talk about your player, drop it below. We're going to help you out. Like I mentioned, there's games Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You're going to be sweating all weekend long into the work week next week. It's going to suck. But hopefully it gets you to the championship, and you're playing for the big dough next week. Don't forget to drop a comment below of your favorite player in the NFL. Is it player in history, player ever? I don't know.
It could be a basketball player at this point.
Just let us know who your favorite is. Make sure you say it's my favorite player. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and then you have a chance to win that fantastic bright white signed Davante Adams jersey, number 1 wide receiver in the league. Oh, it's pretty, man. I want it so bad, but I can't have it because it's going to one of you. And drop a comment below. We're going to announce the winner next week, so don't forget to come back next week to claim your prize because you could be the winner. Subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. See you next week.